Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, All Things Jesus. I'm your girl Adriana. For those of you who haven't already, if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, share, but only if you like it, because I mean, ain't got no time to be sending somebody something that you don't like. But I'm glad that you're tuning in today. Today, I want to be real. I want to talk to you guys. Y'all know how I do when I feel something on my heart, or when I've been talking to the Lord about something that is bothering me, and He gives me the okay to talk to you guys about it, I do so. So this video is for my single women, those of us who have in the past or who's struggling and thinking about settling. Yes, I said it, settling. I just want to say, sis, don't settle. Don't do it. And I'm talking to people who settling for me means maybe you're entertaining somebody who you know you shouldn't be entertaining. Y'all just talking, y'all kicking it, whatever. But you got to check up in your spirit, like, he ain't the one. I'm just lonely. Or maybe you're actually in a dating relationship with someone. He knows the Lord. Y'all can go to church together. Y'all can take cute pictures on Instagram together. But something in your spirit just ain't right. He's not who you know the Lord has for you. Y'all can't fully engage in the work of the kingdom together. He doesn't have that fire in his belly the way that you do. He can't lead you like the man of God is supposed to lead you. Or even somebody, and I say this in a non-condemning or judgmental way, there's somebody who's watching this who has failed even in their abstinence walk. You've gotten to the point where you settled so much that you're like, oh, well, I mean, I see other people out here doing it and I love him and whatever the case may be. So God forgives me. However settling looks like for you, that's what I want to talk about today. And I just want to quickly go through some stories of people who waited on God and people who did not wait on God, and see what that juxtaposition looks like. The first thing I want to talk about is King Saul. So we all know about Saul, first king of Israel, only the king because the people of Israel didn't wait on God and didn't allow God to be who he was. And so they asked Samuel to give him a king. And so the Lord was like, oh, for real? So he gave him Saul. And what I want to talk about is how Saul did not wait on the Lord and did not wait on Samuel, the priest, to get the burnt offering for the victory to come about because of the Lord's hand on them. So they were supposed to give a burnt offering, and so the Lord would then solidify that they would have the victory against the Arameans. Against the Philistines. So Saul, he was like, look, I'm the first king and I'm supposed to be out here for the people. I know that Samuel told me to wait and I'm supposed to wait for 7 days, but I'm going to go on ahead and just send this offering up to the Lord because I want his blessing. I want his hand on us as we go into victory. So Samuel comes like, yo, what did you do? If you would have only waited, I was coming. Like, he literally came after Saul had sent up the burnt offering. So Samuel comes, he probably smells the aroma in the air. And he's like, yo, bruh, what did you do? Like, you went all the way left. You did not wait on me. You did not wait on the Lord. I am the priest. I'm the only one who can give up burnt offerings. You are a king. So you're stepping outside the lines of who you are by doing something in your own strength and in your own timing and not waiting on the Lord. And so I thought, like, whew, that is a great example of someone who did not wait on God and the blessing was right there, like literally coming around the corner, okay? And then I think about how Sarah, we see Abraham's wife, didn't wait on God. She thought that the promise of a son wasn't going to come through her womb. Like, I'm too old. What in the world? So we all know the story and how she gave her maidservant to her husband. And then she was like, you got to go. Get your kid out of here. And so we see that somebody who did not wait on God, Sarah didn't wait on God, caused a whole nother religion for us to contend with. As the story goes, Isaac is the father of Islam. And that's the reason why that whole other religion was brought about, because someone did not wait on God and didn't allow the perfect will of God to be done in her impatience and wondering, how are we going to get to A to B? I know what God promised, but how am I going to get there? Let me help him out some, And so it's like, how many times do we do that ourselves? But this has such detrimental consequences. We have a whole religion to contend with now, and people are going astray because one person in her impatience said, I'm going to do a little bit of God's job for him. So I said, wow, like, wow. But that's juxtaposed to somebody like Hannah, Samuel's mother, that we just talked about when we talked about the story of Saul. Hannah, you know, wanted a child bad. Her and her husband Elkanah were married, but plot twist, he had another wife as well, Peninnah, and she was popping out babies left and right. So imagine Hannah's despair, and just like the lament of the fact that I am a woman, right? I want to bear children. That is where I get my esteem from. I talked about that in my last video of how that's how it was in those times. That was like where your worth came from as a wife and as a woman. And so she's like, I want to bear a child. I'm just asking for one. But did she get mad? Did she pop back at Peninnah when Peninnah was taunting her for not being able to bear children? No. What did she do? She went into the temple every year, offered those sacrifices with her husband. She got a double portion of meat from her husband because he saw the despair that she was in, that she didn't have a child. And she prayed and she cried and she prayed and she cried. And what did the Lord do? He honored her faithfulness. He honored her endurance by not only giving her a child, but a son. And she was able to give God back that son because of how grateful she was that God had granted the desires of her heart. And that son was Samuel, who we see, you know, as the priest in that story when I talked about Saul. And then we go on to another woman in the New Testament. In Luke, we find her, Anna, the prophetess. I said Hannah because their names I found are similar and they mean favor and grace. And so Anna, we find her in the text, a great prophetess who was married for only 7 short years and then lived life as a widow for 84 years. She dedicated her life to the Lord. She prayed, she fasted daily. She basically lived in the temple. And we know, we can infer that she probably was praying and asking God, when would she see the promised Messiah? When would they see the Redeemer of Israel? Would it be in her lifetime? And what did God do? He honored her faithfulness and her waiting. And in his providence, it just so happened that Mary and Joseph had to come by the very temple where Anna was praying and fasting on a daily because they needed to fulfill the Old Testament rules and laws, and they had to give a purification offering for Jesus, and they had to account for the fact that he was their firstborn son. And so they had to come and do all of these things as the law would have it, and Anna was able to see the prophecy fulfilled. She was able to see her prayers and her faithfulness and her fasting, and the Lord granted her that, I believe, because she waited upon the Lord. She didn't grow weary in well-doing. She didn't say, oh, I'm going to take matters into my own hands, or I'm going to just go out here and live life how I desire to live life and do something that might possibly even have been good. I'm not saying they were bad things. They might have been good to remarry and live life, but she decided to dedicate her life to the Lord. And what a great gift. She was one of the first people to know that Jesus had came in this earth, that the world was going to be redeemed by baby Jesus. And so I'm just thinking to myself when I think about these stories of people who did wait on God, juxtaposed to those who did not wait on God. Where are you going to find yourself at, sis? Where are you going to end up on the opposite end of these spectrums? People who their hearts were in the right places. I'm not calling Sarah or Saul inherently bad people, but they grew impatient. They tried to do the Lord's job for him. And trying to get to that promise that he had for them, because he gave them both promises, but he gave them commands as well. Or you find yourself on the side of Hannah and Anna and find grace and favor with the Lord. So I just wanted to put these stories in the forefront of your mind. Go ahead and look at them for yourself. They're very familiar texts, so we all know about them, but dig into them for yourself. If you find yourself, and sis, only you and God know what's going on, if you're settling, and like I've already said before, a promise of marriage is not in the Bible, right? Promises are the fact that God, will never leave us nor forsake us. But only you and God know if he has placed a certain desire in your heart, right? Because he fulfills the desires of those who fear him. He gives us the desires of our heart, meaning he places them inside of us. So if your desire for a godly marriage was placed in your heart by God, sis, it's going to come to pass. You do not want a relationship that will have you filled with regrets A life full of regrets is a horrible life to live. And I don't want you to end up that way. So get on your face before the Lord. If you find yourself in a position that you just don't feel like waiting any longer. You thought 2018 was the year, okay? And it hasn't happened. Wait on the Lord. Don't find yourself like those in the text who did not wait and had a life wrought with consequences and pain and residual effects of their sin. Yes, God is a redeemer. He is a healer. And we still do have to pay for the things that we do that are not like him. So don't even do that. Don't even find yourself like that. Wait on the Lord. Trust in him. Keep the courage. I'm doing the same thing. And watch him reward your faithfulness. So until next time, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Bye, guys.